Okay, guys, welcome to the video. We are now live. Just give me a second. I want to pop up the comments here on my own channel. All right. So I've done two videos previously on the Shroud of Turin. So I wrote the Burial Shroud. I thought it was more captivating, but we're going to be talking about the Shroud of Turin. I'm going to show you right away with a share screen my previous videos if ever you want to go into larger depth. This video is going to talk about the Shroud of Turin, an overview of it, but we're going to try and get to the new evidence. There's new published scientific research using wide-angled X-ray scattering techniques to look at basically the degradation of the cellulose in the flax to determine the age of the burial shroud. And I can't even say it, sorry. I've been rushing to get this, I'm a bit scattered. It's pretty much dated to the 1st century. So it's about 2,000 years old. Now, this is very important because there was some very good research that was done by the Shroud of Turin Research Project. It was Barry Schwartz, who you can find on YouTube. He was part of the original Shroud of Turin Research Project. They were allowed, I think, 160 hours to do scientific studies on the actual Shroud of Turin, which is owned by the Vatican. So I will speak about their conclusions, but there was also carbon-14 dating. Now, the carbon-14 dating says that it is dated to the medieval times between 1200 and 1500. And then they say, well, then look, this is a hoax. Now, first of all, we're going to look at the Shroud of Turin Research Project conclusions, where they basically say they have no idea how the image was able to be imprinted on the shroud. They're like to this date. So if it's a medieval forger, then he was smart enough to use human blood type AB. He not only used blood, but he made sure that there were things like creatinine and bilirubin and other blood products that are found in the bloodstream of massively traumatized individuals. He was able to imprint, this forger in medieval time. He was able to put the image, okay, first he put the blood, but then after he put the blood everywhere, he was able to align this image, and the image does not penetrate throughout the whole fibers. It's only on 1/10 of the fiber. And not only that, but the medieval forger was able to do this and using modern technology. Well, at the time in the 80s, VP8 analyzer, so VP8 image analyzer. Sorry, I'm telling you, I rushed. So I'm a little like, short of breath here. They used I'll slide into my groove soon. So they used the VP8 image analyzer, which is equipment used by NASA to take images of space. And this medieval forger was able to make three-dimensional properties using this modern technology. So he is a pretty darn clever forger. And that's what's very, very frustrating about the carbon dating of it, is that all of this evidence, this insane evidence that science can't reproduce just because of a very biased and unscientifically done carbon dating, they were able to blow this off. And people saw the headlines. And basically, for a long time, anybody who's done a deep dive into the Shroud of Turin will try and talk to it. And people, for some reason, will remember, oh, yeah, but the carbon dating is from medieval times, and they just blow it off. Not to mention that there is many articles now that refute the carbon dating and explain why. Initially, the carbon dating was supposed to take 3 samples from 3 different locations. The labs that were to analyze the carbon dating were not to know what they were analyzing. What ended up happening was they took 1 sample, which was right on the edge of the Shroud of Turin. They cut that sample into 3 pieces. They sent it to 3 different labs, and they told the labs what it was. There's something called, like, when the public's allowed to have access to information, so Access Information Act or something. I might be wrong on the amount of time, but basically the people, or the British Museum and the people that published the carbon dating refused to give all of the raw data. Now, without us knowing the raw data, it said that the dating was 95% reliable. But when all of the raw data that has finally come to surface and has been published, you can go to PubMed, right? Shroud of Turin, you'll get a whole slew of research articles. It is extremely unreliable. What they say is the results are not homogeneous, meaning they are not unified. They are heterogeneous. They are all over the place. So let's just get into a brief description of what the Shroud of Turin is for people who have no clue what I'm talking about. So I think maybe we can look at the image. Prior to that, sorry, I just want to share screen. This is where I lose track of where I am. I'm going to share screen. Old videos tend not to be viewed, unfortunately. It's just the way life is. We always kind of look at the newer videos, even of the people we like and follow, but the older videos are very good too. So if you're interested in looking at a PowerPoint presentation that was done a year ago, it says, "Is the Shroud of Turin the image of Jesus?" I am actually quite
stupid thing
because I don't know what happened, but I must have deleted that PowerPoint. I never delete PowerPoints because I usually tend to build on the PowerPoints themselves, but I cannot find where it is. I found, when I looked it up, maybe like a saved version with like 8 slides, when the full version has probably around 60 slides. So you can go to "Is the Shroud of Turin the image of Jesus?" And it's very detailed. I was quite passionate that day. Some people say this was, one of their favorite presentations and one of the most complete presentations on the Shroud of Turin. You can, I went hardcore on this one, but unfortunately I can't do another version of it, present it again. But you guys can always go and check this video out if you'd like to see it. And I think there was another one that I also did. It's the same presentation that I added to one of my daily breads But you don't have to look at both of them. The first one that I showed you is the most complete. The other one is, if you're curious. So you can go to live, go all the way to the bottom. It's one of my oldest videos. I don't even know why I'm wasting time here. Anyways, doesn't matter. If you're interested, please go see the one that I just showed you over here. Okay, so that is that. Let's go now to stop the share. I'm going to now share the start of the PowerPoint presentation, the little that I have left. Hey, Anne, I'm going to say hello to you guys in a minute. I want to share the entire screen. We have 8 people, 9 people now. Thank you, everyone. Say hello in the chat. We have 2 people watching on Facebook. All right, so you should see the images of Jesus Christ here. So the question is, where did we come up with this kind of common image of Jesus Christ? You know, some people even make the claim that he was more African American. So it's like, you know, we have also, you know, the blue-eyed Jesus, which is probably not accurate either. But it's like, but they're all like, they all look very, very similar. And once you see the image of the Shroud of Turin, you're going to understand why the images look like that. Basically, they are taking the image of the crucified man on the burial cloth to make this artwork. So then you kind of get all these versions, you know, which I don't think you really look like that. We're not given much information besides here it says, and my cheeks to those who pluck out my beard. So he had a beard. That's pretty much the information that we have. If you've never seen the Shroud of Turin, this is what the Shroud of Turin is. Now, when you look at the Shroud of Turin with the naked eye, if you're too close to the shroud, you can't see the image. If you're too far, you can't see the image. You have to be a certain distance. And even at that distance with the naked eye, it's a very, very faint image of what you could say is a crucified man. There's a gentleman in the medieval ages, in the mid ages, that took a photograph with an old school, you know, camera, and he was shocked because when he developed the image was like a photo negative kind of thing. So you know how like when we used to have like put cameras and stuff like that, we used to get them developed. They used to give like the photo negatives, and it was kind of distorted, and you couldn't see really what it was. And then you know you'd get the picture and be like, oh, you know, like wow, it looks like the image. I know what it is. So when he took the image, he looked at his photo negative, but it didn't look distorted. It actually looked like a photo positive. So when he took a photo of this faint image, he saw in the negatives a positive image. So therefore, the image on the shroud is a photo negative. We can see over here the shroud is very long, so it has the back and it's flopped over the front. And we can see here that all of these things here, these lines are showing up. These are scourge marks. So I'm going to try and not say that it's Jesus. I'll let you guys decide, but I'll say that this is a burial cloth of a man that bears all the marks of Jesus in the Gospels. We have the scourge marks that he endured under the hands of the Romans, Pilate. We have over here as well the blood stain through the wrist. Now, it says that he was crucified through his hands. In Hebrew, the wrist, not the forearm, but here, up to here is considered the hand. And if you look at a lot of art, he's crucified through the palms. But that would not make sense because the weight of the body would just rip through the flesh. It has to be between the radial and ulnar bone, so that the crucified person is able to lift up, all right, to take a breath. Now, Jesus was also crucified, one nail through both feet. And if we look here on the bottom, we as well see the blood stains for the injury that went through his feet. We see the front of his body as well was totally scourged, whipped, scourged. I think, to scorch it is to burn. So he was whipped. This here is just like the Gospels, which is a biography. It's a biography of 3 years of Jesus's ministry, saying the most important parts that are needed. Right? It says if we explained everything that Jesus said and did, there'd be, buildings and libraries full. It was what was necessary to be known. And we're not going to get into the reliability, the accuracy, or what historians and New Testament scholars say, but it's basically, you might get debated by somebody who just wants to say that the Bible's corrupt, but people who have PhDs, historians, that this is their career, so they have to watch out what they're saying. They have to stay within their scientific realm. No one denies that especially the epistles of Paul, but the Gospels are first century. Okay, so so the apostles initially were they did not write the Gospels. They were going around preaching the good news, but as they were realizing that they were dying and being martyred, they pretty quickly decided we have to put this to paper. So the gospel is, and the letters are, the gospels, let's say, Matthew, Mark, John are first eyewitnesses that walked with Jesus. Luke is basically a historian. It says clearly in the Gospel of Luke that he's gathered and compiled. So he is not a first eyewitness, but he interviewed and spoke with the first eyewitnesses. So let's continue. You can go to check this out if you want. So here is the 1988 carbon test that is refuted. So the 1988 carbon 14 test done in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona labs use pieces of a sample cut from a corner. There's also evidence that the whole burial shroud is basically flax linen, and that the edges were a repaired area. And it's a different kind of fiber, and it's been stained to look the same color. Not to mention as well, for a very long time in the history of the shroud, it was held up by clerics, the edges and the upper part, to show people in antiquity. all of these things with the fire, that it was in a cathedral. In fact, these triangles, these large triangle marks, are scorch marks where the silver container melted, and these are repaired areas as well. So, but let's even just let go of the fact that the carbon-14 was likely literally not part of the original shroud. If you don't even believe that, just the way the science was done showed bias. The data, all the raw data, refusing to give it to the public until they had to go to court about it. So a January 2005 paper in the professional journal Thermochemica Acta, Ray Rogers, a retired fellow with the Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory and a lead chemist with the original science team, the Shroud of Turin research project. That's the guy, Barry Schwartz, as well. You can see him. He's passed away, but he has a lot of stuff. He dedicated his life to the Shroud of Turin. He was a Jew. He became a believer. He never outright said that he was a believer because he thought that it had more of an effect. Because when he did come to his conclusions with that team, he was not a believer. So when it's a believer talking about the evidence, it tends to, lead people to believe that there's a bias. So the 1978 Shroud of Turin research project involved 33 scientists, 26 of them directly examining the shroud for 5 days, has shown conclusively that the sample cut from the Shroud of Turin in 1988 was taken from an area of the cloth that was rewoven during the Middle Ages. So here are some excerpts. Pyrolysis mass spectrometry results from the sample area, coupled with microscopic and microchemical observations, prove that the radiocarbon sample was not part of the original cloth of the Shroud of Turin. Yet many people don't know that. The radiocarbon date was thus not valid for determining the true age of the shroud. Now, this is not the new evidence that I'm speaking to you about. This has been known for quite some time. As part of the STURP project, I took 32 adhesive tape samples from all areas of the shroud and associated textiles in 1978. It enacted direct chemical testing on recovered linen fibers, particulates. If the shroud had been produced between, as they stated, it's a hoax because it's between 2060 and 1390 AD, as indicated by the carbon dating, lignin should be easy to detect. The linen produced in 2060 AD would have retained about 37% of its vanillin in 1978. The Holland cloth and all other medieval linens that they have that they can compare the shroud with gave tested positive for vanillin. Wherever lignin could be observed on growth nodules, the disappearance of all traces of vanillin from the lignin in the shroud indicates a much older age than the radiocarbon laboratories reported. Also, the fire of 1532 could not have greatly affected the vanillin content of lignin in all parts of the shroud equally. The thermal conductivity of linens is very low. Therefore, the unscorched parts of the folded cloth could not have become very hot. So that's good enough for there. So new experiments date the Shroud of Turin to the 1st century AD. So we have a shroud that has all the marks of Jesus Christ that's portrayed in the Gospels. We have a very flawed carbon 14 dating process that is heavily biased. We have more and more and more research indicating that it's first century. The Shroud of Turin research project said that there's no scientific way, chemical, physics, biological, there is no known way of replicating this shroud. However, showing their bias when they showed the result, they didn't just say that we did the carbon 14 and it's dated between that and that. They called it a hoax. You can't call it a hoax if you don't know how it was produced. If there's zero pigment, zero evidence that there is any art, pigment, paints, or ways of denaturing the linen with acidic or alkalinic substances. Us smart people now still, if you want to call it a hoax, well, then you know what? We're putting people to, we're sending rovers to Mars. We're cloning sheep. We're doing CRISPR technology. Make the linen. Make the linen that the medieval forger did. They compromised 3 tests, 2 chemical and 1 mechanical. The chemical tests were done with Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy and ramen noodles are good, spectroscopy, examining the relationship between the age and the spectral property of ancient flax textiles. The mechanical test measured several micro-mechanical characteristics of flax fibers, such as the tensile strength. The results were compared to similar tests on samples of cloths from between 3000 BC to 2000 AD, whose dates are accurately known. So is the image formation of, image formation versus work of an artist. No one knows for sure how the images were created. The images are scorch-like, yet not created by heat. They're created actually by light. The same way that you go to, I remember going to my grandmother's house, and she has old newspapers, but the newspapers were all yellowed, that's just oxidation, that's just the light, oxidizes the paper and it gradually, turns yellowish. So not only is this evidence of Jesus Christ, in my opinion, dying on the cross, okay, that he was a true historical figure, that the Gospels are not fairy tale, that they are historical and they're written like biographies. Not only that, because that would have just put the blood, but that there is an image that is in fact a photo negative, a photo positive in a way. Is it when you take a picture? Yeah, so basically it's a photo negative of a crucified man. And not only that, it's on 1/10 of of the fibers. So what do you think happens when Jesus was resurrected? There must have been an intense burst of light, which didn't heat the cloth, but just like an X-ray, when you go, X-ray is just a wavelength of light. So you go, for a chest X-ray, and they shoot X-ray, at you. It passes through your body and it makes an image. The same idea here. Now, in my original presentation, I also went to PubMed and showed that DNA itself emits a low level of light. So maybe another time I'll be able to show you that. But if you go to my original video, you'll see that that DNA itself is not only a coded instruction blueprint manual for all various body types, all animals, all living things have DNA. This genetic language, this digital code, which is for humans about 6 billion letters long, that is not just random nucleotides that became alive in some molecular soup. It is a book. It is an instruction manual that tells how, that builds various body systems. It's a language. So not only is it a language, but it's a language that emits light. So if we know scientifically that our DNA emits light, it doesn't sound so far-fetched that during the resurrection that God, that light created such an intense amount of light that it imprinted itself like an X-ray. So they're not scorched. So yeah, they are scorch-like, but not created by heat, and are purely a surface phenomena limited to the crowns and basically 1/10 of the fibers, the top. The shroud is clearly, it's not painted. That's where the Shroud of Turin research project, they excluded all these possibilities. The shroud is clearly not painted. There's no evidence of pigment or any other media, artistic media was found on it. The blood was on the cloth before the image, an unlikely way for an artist to work. There's no outline, no binders to hold the paint, no evidence that paint, dye, ink, chalk created the images. Don't forget, during the fire, it was doused in water and didn't smudge at all. And there are no brush strokes. According to world-renowned artists, the images have no style that could fit into any period of art history. The images show perfect photo negativity, as well with the VP8 photo imager, three-dimensional qualities. It is not a vapor graph or natural result of vapors. Some microscopic particles of paint exist on the shroud, but these do not constitute the image. During the Middle Ages, a practice called the sanctification of paintings permitted about 50 artists to paint replicas of the shroud, then lay their paintings over the shroud to sanctify them. This permitted contact transfer of particles, which then migrated around the cloth with the folding and rolling of the shroud. STURP determined that the image was caused by a rapid dehydration, oxidation, and a degradation of the linen by an unidentified process. Yeah, it's called God the Father raising Jesus from the dead after 3 days in the tomb. So the linen by an unidentified process. Shall we say a miracle? Coloring it a sepia of straw yellow. Several physicists suggest that a form of columnated radiation is the best explanation for how the image was formed, leaving a scorch-like appearance, the scorch caused by light versus heat, as the image does not fluoresce. All right, Dr. Thomas Phillips, nuclear physicist at labs at Harvard, says a potential milliburst of radiation, a neutron flux, could be consistent with the moment of a resurrection. This is Harvard and Duke University saying this. Such a milliburst might cause the purely surface phenomenon of the scorched by light images, and possibly add carbon-14 as well to the cloth. As Dr. Phillips points out, we never had a resurrection to study, and more testing should be done to ascertain whether a neutron flux actually occurred. I'm going to go through here. So go check out the Shroud of Turin website. Joe Schwartz is him, I believe. No, it's not him, but he runs the site, and now he's passed away. That's him. So you can go gather more information for your own research as you wish. But this is very important to get the information because he was the scientist. He was one of the scientists. So the blood on the Shroud of Turin is real. It's human male blood of AB type. Only 3% of the world population have this rare blood type. The blood chemists, just jumping, you can check the names there, found a high concentration of the pigment bilirubin. Bilirubin accumulates in the blood during mass trauma, which would be consistent with Jesus receiving around 200 lashes with a flagrum, causing massive trauma, as well as the beating, as well as the nailing, as well as the piercing after he was dead. So the bilirubin, when it's in a high enough concentration, it will keep the color of blood red. Usually blood, when it has oxygen, it's nice bright red. So anybody who spills blood, leave it there for long enough, you'll see it'll turn a much darker color, but the blood appears still red, and this is an effect of bilirubin. Again, thinking that the forger, if you are a skeptic, it was pretty smart. This was prior to us having the ability to even know what blood was besides a red substance. So this is consistent with someone dying under great stress or trauma and making the color more red than normal. Even has XY chromosomes. It does have some degraded DNA. The fiber is covered with creatinine. Okay, this is a byproduct of muscle breakdown. So obviously all of the whip mark, the lash marks, the scourging, the beating of his face, the pounding of the cap of they call it a thorn of crowns. We usually see it as kind of just a circle of thorns, but the person on the shroud, it appears that it is a cap. So it doesn't just cover the outside, it was on the whole top like a cap. So the fiber is covered with creatinine, nanoparticles made of defective ferritinite, typical of biological ferritin cores, that's iron. This is not typical in blood serum of a healthy human being. High levels of creatinine in the blood are observed in cases, again, of severe trauma. Other research has noted the interaction between creatinine and ferritin in fatal accidents or as a consequence of rhabdomyolysis due to torture. Rhabdomyolysis is a complex medical condition involving rapid dissolution or damage of injured skeletal muscles. People can even get rhabdomyolysis, not only just motor vehicle accidents or severe trauma. You can even get it if you run a marathon. There's so much muscle breakdown that to a certain degree you could have mild cases of rhabdomyolysis. This just fills the bloodstream with a lot of various blood byproducts, and they go clog up the kidneys, causes renal failure. And all of this can cause DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation, which basically prevents you from clotting, so you can bleed out relatively quickly. It's a massive necrosis manifested as limb weakness. This is severe trauma, but you can imagine that Jesus as well had hypovolemic shock from the amount of blood that was lost. So he didn't have a lot of blood volume. The blood volume that he did have was further reduced because he was dehydrated. Remember that his tongue was sticking to his palate. And now you have a hypovolemic, low blood volume, dehydrated, so not a lot of water in the vessels, and you have all of these byproducts of massive trauma happening. And also you're losing albumin, which is a protein found in the blood. So that happens during hypovolemic shock. So you would naturally get effusions around the heart and also around the lungs, pericardial effusions, which is fluid around the heart, compressing the heart, leading to heart failure. So Jesus, in a way, died of a broken heart. And you'd get also an accumulation of water, basically, around the lung. This is why when in the Gospels, again, when they that soldier pierced him through his side, likely traversing through the lung and also the heart, not only blood came out, but blood and water. They explained it, they saw it as water. We call pulmonary edema, water in the lungs. So it's just amazing how even when Jesus was praying in the garden, because he knew he was going to the cross, he was sweating blood. His sweat was like blood. That's a medical condition that can occur under severe stress as well. There's here when it says that the muscle damage is often the result of a crush injury. It's called crush syndrome. But all this to say is this is how we get this kind of typical Jesus look that we've seen all throughout history. So we're done with that. Let's go to the comments. Creating Greatness podcast. Hey, Robert, how are you? I did an interview, kind of a testimony on Robert's podcast. So I think it's Robert, put your link so that people can go and see you. I think it's at King of Comebacks, but it's spelt like differently. So go see my interview there. Robert is a Christian as well, and he has a great story, good content there. And he interviews a lot of people open-mindedly, not just Christians. We will have him as well on my channel. Hey, Darla, thank you for showing up. If you're interested in ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting, go to my Patreon. Or if you want to support the channel, you can for $3 and $3.50, I think, Canadian, or $5 per month. That would help. We also have Anne. Hello, Anne. Thanks for showing up. The real Wayno is in the house. It is still real. Well, it's real to me too. Even when they had the carbon 14, I was like, this is biased. So especially when you get, like I said, you call it a hoax, but then after you don't comment that, oh yeah, it's a hoax because of the poor dating that we did here, the unscientific carbon 14 dating, but we have no clue how it was done. And stuff like that. You have to look at the preponderance of the evidence. Paul Smith, sorry, I did show it at the start, I thought, but we will show it more as we go. We also got Bill Bailey in the house. Bill doesn't have really a lot of videos on his channel, but he posts a lot of information on his community. He also has a book that is the Millennial or the Millennium Reign. So go and buy that book as well if you're interested in knowing. You see, like the Revelation, the last book, which they call the Apocalypse, is not the end of the world. It's the end of man's world. It's the end of the reign of Lucifer, the prince of the powers of the air here. Revelation is the revealing of Jesus Christ, and it is a new beginning. It is the end of this fallen world. It is the correction of the rebellion that Satan did. It's a correction of the angelic rebellion of Genesis 6. It is a correction of our sin through Adam. It is redemption for mankind. It is a millennial 1,000-year reign, a Sabbath millennial here on earth, where already the earth is beginning to be restored as God wanted. It's Eden restored. After the millennial reign, there is once again, for a short time, Satan tests the nations and is here briefly, then thrown into the lake of fire. And then there's a new heaven and a new earth, and our minds have no idea what that entails. My wife is just coming in. Give me a second. All right, so let's continue. Keep things going, please. So put simply, 5% of the sample data from 1988, I'm reading what Bill wrote, was used for the date, and the Arizona samples were never tested in the FOIR reply, but included in the 1988 declaration at Oxford, UK, 23 years to reply. We have a Tux TV. First century grounds have been found. Tests exactly how a first century shroud should be. Right on. Totally agree. This is a fake pollen, wax, DNA, all distract from this sheet being legitimate or not. This is fake. Not sure about that. Not sure if he thinks it's fake or not. You need 3,000 times all the single focus light on Earth fired simultaneously for 4 billionths of a second. They figured that out with a supercomputer, as the Earth lacks 2.999 or almost 3,000 of said sources to create. If you need it, I've got 5 symposiums and 20,000 hours of published research. The scientific consensus is it is genuine, and I 100% agree with you. We got Kai in the house. Thanks, Kai, for showing up. Everyone, please share this with your community. Subscribe, put the notifications, give it a thumbs up if you appreciate what I'm doing here. Don't forget, at 7 p.m. Eastern, I will be doing 2 Corinthians 6 Daily Bread Bible study. I'm going to leave. Okay, let's read Bill's last here. It says, there's no crush damage to the lower back beyond scourging, hanging, showing the body was under 4 days old when the image was made. The position of the hands is that of an alive person, not a dead person, without using muscles. So also, what else was it? the whole idea of crucifixion was that you would create postural asphyxiation. So they had a little bit of wood there to push up. They nailed, with one nail through the ankles, so through the feet, boom, one. And then you were crucified between the radial and the ulnar bone, and the weight of the body would stretch out the diaphragm and stuff, and it made it very hard to take breath, to breathe. So what you'd have to do is bear down on your crucified feet and pull up with the nails to take a deep breath, and then out of fatigue you would go down, and it was a slow, agonizing asphyxiation. They were naked on the cross. I don't doubt that Jesus was naked also on the cross. But unlike the reason that Jesus died so quickly was the excessive scourging that he got. The whipping was more than what is legally. There's a legal amount that the Romans would do. I think that they went far and beyond that. Not to mention that this is a burial cloth of a crucified man, and there were many people that were crucified, but it wasn't a regular practice to put any thorns on the head. And this particular crucified man on this burial cloth has the thorns, okay, and stuff like that. So let's continue. Blessings to child of God as well. All right, so let's go to screen share again. So now we're going to this is for people who have an academic mind kind of thing. We're just going to go through the research papers. So I didn't have time. This was a last minute presentation. That's why you saw I was kind of all over the place before I got into the groove. I wasn't even sure where I should start. So I didn't have time. Like I said, I, for some reason, deleted or lost the original presentation that I would have wanted to just build on, add on. But I did show you at the start of this video. Go see my original one if you are interested. Besides that, we're going to just do a very brief description, show the image, show when it appeared, and then we'll go into the research papers from there. Present screen. So the Shroud of Turin. What's up, sweetheart? Yeah. I might have to go upstairs. Yeah. Awesome. I'm just going to show the image one more time for people that are showing up. And I'm going to go upstairs. Yeah. Try and finish this within about an hour. Yeah. Papa will be back. Okay, he's just going upstairs for a bit. Yeah. Where'd you get it? Just give me a sec, guys. I thought that they would be gone a lot longer. My wife had said 2 hours. Well, it's probably at least an hour and a half we've been doing this. All right. Over here, this is what it looked like with the VP8 photo analyzer. And they compared the VP8 with, let's say, paintings or a photograph and stuff like that. And you didn't get the three-dimensional outprints that you get with the actual Shroud of Turin. Just going to look here. A summary of STURP's conclusions. Again, no pigment, paints, dyes, or stains have been found on the fibrils. When using X-ray, fluorescence, and microchemistry on the fibrils. How much time can you give me?
That's not the question.
I'll press mute for a second. Okay. We'll try and wrap this up in like half an hour, guys, because my wife, I thought she was going to be gone for 2 hours, but she's back early, so I don't want to spend like the whole day here. We should be seeing now. Sorry for the bright light in the back as well. So let's get through this relatively quickly. All right. So again, this is a summary of STURP. X-ray fluorescence and microscopy on the fibrils preclude the possibility of paint being used as a method for creating the image. Ultraviolet infrared evaluation confirms these studies. The computer image enhancement and analysis by the device known as the VP8 image analyzer show that the image has unique three-dimensional information encoded into it. Microchemical evaluation has indicated no evidence of any spices, oils, or other biochemicals known to be produced by the body in life or in death. It is clear that there has been a direct contact of the shroud with the body, which explains certain features such as discouragement marks as well as blood. However, while this type of contact might explain some of the features of the torso, it is totally incapable of explaining the image of the face with the high resolution that has been amply demonstrated by photography. The basic problem from a scientific point of view is that some explanations might be tenable from a chemical point of view are precluded by physics. Contrariwise, certain physical explanations which may be attractive are completely precluded by chemistry. For an adequate explanation for the Shroud of Turin, one must have an explanation which is scientifically sound from a physical, chemical, biological, and medical viewpoint. There's also a lot of studies that you can go to PubMed where there's actually publications by doctors and coroners giving evidence that the shroud portrays medical evidence that this is valid medically. That this would be seen in someone that was crucified, what the information they can gather from the shroud. So the scientific consensus is that the image was produced by something which resulted in oxidation, dehydration, conjugation of the polysaccharide structures of the microfibril of the linen itself. Such changes can be duplicated in the laboratory by certain chemical and physical process. A similar type of change in the linen can be obtained by sulfuric acid or heat. However, there are no chemical or physical methods known which can account for the totality of the image, nor can any combination of physical, chemical, biological, or medical circumstances explain the image adequately. We can conclude for now that the shroud image is that of a real human form of a scourged, crucified man. It is not the product of an artist, and the blood stains are composed of hemoglobin and also have a positive test for serum albumin. The image is an ongoing mystery scientifically, and until further chemical studies are made, perhaps by this group of scientists or perhaps by some in the future. Looking at here, this is from shroud.com. I'm not going to go through it, but basically it talks about the issues with the carbon dating. So it's to those unfamiliar with the scientific method and even less with its instrumentation, the newly released results of carbon dating would seem to dismiss the shroud forever as a forgery. The 3 laboratories enlisted in the process have given a range of manufactured dates between the 1260 and 1390. However, this new evidence should not be accepted so quickly and in no way as the final and complete solution. Carbon dating at best is one tool among many. So I'm going to try and jump around a bit. When a sample is taken in the field by an archaeologist for carbon dating, a number of precautions must be observed. No one in the area can be smoking. Well, this was around in churches, incense, candles. The sample must be removed by sterile tools and not touched by hands. It was handled by clerics shown to the public for a long time. It cannot be placed in a paper cardboard or any other type of organic container, and it must be processed in a laboratory before too much time has passed since its removal, with so many possibilities for contamination, which would destroy test accuracy. Another procedure has been introduced to pretest or scrub samples to remove contaminations, which might be contracted. Much of the shroud's history is unknown, and the possibility of it being contaminated by its surroundings are staggering. We do blah blah blah. Let's go down here. Even if it's, let's look at his critiques here. In any form of inquiry or scientific discipline, it is the weight of the evidence which must be considered conclusive. In archaeology, if there are 10 lines of evidence, carbon dating being one of them, and it conflicts with the other 9, there's little hesitation to actually throw out the carbon date as inaccurate due to unforeseen contamination. The shroud should not be given less than standard procedure, which it was given less than standard. Clearly, in this instance, the carbon dating is conflicting with the weight of all the other evidence. A few examples will suffice. There's written records. Accounts exist which report the shroud in Constantinople prior to the city's sack by the Crusaders in 1204. This provides solid evidence outside the carbon date range beginning at 1260. Artistic representation. Like I said at the start, where do we get this classical image, of Jesus? The face on the shroud was copied by earlier artists and can be identified without doubt in works such as the Christ mosaic in Greek Daphne Church, the mosaic of the Transfiguration in the monastery St. Catherine, dated to about 550 AD. Again, both examples long before the carbon date. You can also look at the Sudarium of Aviedo. Aviedo is where the Sudarium is located. The Sudarium is a burial cloth that covers the face. The markings of the Sudarium of Aviedo, when transposed over the Shroud of Turin, match. So they are a pair. And I'll go even further, and I haven't done very deep study in this, but the face of Odessa that is very, very, much earlier than when the Shroud of Turin popped up, could very well be the shroud that was, folded into a square where only the face appeared, and then the Shroud of Turin, prior to it being called that, was known as the face of Odessa. Take that with a grain of salt. It's something that I'd need to look into. If a medieval forgery was created to be accepted, it would not have challenged the traditional representation of the crucifixion, namely placing the nail holes in the wrists rather than the palms, where you see a lot of the ancient tradition artwork, etc., and using a whole cap of thorns instead of the single wreath. Scientific analysis, researchers have not only identified human blood, microscopic muscle fragments, and hair on the cloth, but also pollen that is specifically from Judea, and even calcium particles from limestone that is found only in Jerusalem. So no medieval forger would have considered all the details we now look for in identification of fake art. The use of real human corpse to produce an image, the exact distribution of calcium particles from the enshrouded body, contact with the bench in the tomb, the greatest concentration of calcium around the feet of the man from feet of the man from his walk to execution, the audacity to think that the traditional placement of the wounds would be ignored and an alternative accepted. So that's a little bit of what they're saying over here. I just want to make sure that I'm sharing appropriately. Let's continue. I want to make sure that I was screen sharing okay. Good. 2 seconds, we'll continue. Sorry for the light, guys. Is that better? Yeah, it's better. All right, let's do this. Good. So this is the radiocarbon dating of the Shroud of Turin, new evidence from the raw data. Remember I said that they didn't want to give the raw data? This is just the abstract. So in 1988, 3 laboratories performed a radiocarbon analysis of the Shroud of Turin. The results which were centralized by the British Museum and published in Nature in '89, provided conclusive evidence of a medieval origin of the artifact. However, the raw data were never released by the institutions. In 2017, imagine that much time passed, in response to a legal request, all raw data kept by the British Museum were made accessible. A statistical analysis of the Nature article and the raw data strongly suggests that homogeneity is lacking in the data and that the procedure should be reconsidered. So again, homogeneity means that the raw data all came to very similar conclusions. When you have heterogeneity, it means that there's big differences in the raw data. This is published in Heritage. This is the X-ray dating of the Shroud of Turin linen sample. Reading the abstract. On a sample of the Turin shroud, we applied a new method for dating ancient linen threads by inspecting the structural degradation by means of wide-angle X-ray scattering. The X-ray dating method was applied to a sample of the shroud consisting of a thread taken in proximity to the 1988 radiocarbon area, the corner of the shroud corresponding to the feet area of the frontal image near the so-called raise sample. The size of the linen sample was about 0.5 millimeters by 1 millimeter. We obtained one-dimensional integrated wax, that just means wide-angle X-ray scattering data, profiles for the shroud samples, which were fully compatible with the analogous measurements obtained on a linen sample whose dating, according to historical records, is around 55 to 74 AD. So they use this method, and they're coming up with, I guess, 55 to 74 AD. You know, Jesus was crucified around 33 AD, 33 AD. So it says here, which I just want to make sure I read it, which were fully compatible with the measurements obtained on a linen whose sample on a linen sample whose dating, according to historical records. Okay, no, not that. They're not saying that it dated to 55 to 74 AD. It's saying that they have a sample that they know is between 55 and 74 AD, and that the shroud measures very, very close to that. I mean, being a couple of decades off when you're talking about, you know, what they were considering thousands over 1.5, you know, 150, 1,500 years off, you know, now we're talking about, you know, a couple of decades off. The degree of natural aging of the cellulose that constitutes the linen of the investigated sample obtained by X-ray analysis showed that the shroud fabric is much older than the 7 centuries proposed by the 1988 radiocarbon dating. The experimental results are compatible with the hypothesis that the Turin shroud is a 2,000-year-old relic, as supposed by Christian tradition, under the conditions that it was kept at suitable levels of average secular temperatures and correlated relative humidity. For 13 centuries of unknown history, in addition to the 7 centuries of known history, since it entered our history and we know where it was stored and we can have an idea of the temperatures and the humidity at that point. So for 13 centuries of unknown history, in addition to the 7 centuries of known history in Europe, to make the present result compatible with that of the 1988 carbon test the Turin shroud should have been conserved during its hypothetical 7 centuries of life at a secular room temperature very close to the maximum values registered on Earth. So I'm going to try and cut it short because, like I said, I thought that I'd be alone for 2 hours. But this is the title: X-ray dating of a Turin Shroud's linen sample. Write Heritage, write PubMed, or just copy paste that. I'll copy paste this. I'll put it in the chat. It goes into more and more detail. Over here, it compares. The Turin Shroud is in yellow, and we're looking at this area here, okay? Not up here, just here. So something that's 2000 AD, okay, like now would be up here. Okay, something from 3250 BC would be here. And something, from around 65 AD is green, and the Shroud of Turin is yellow. Look how close the Shroud of Turin follows the same wide angle X-ray scattering. So this is kind of an important visual to show that this would be 3000 BC. This is 2000 AD. This is about almost just under 5,000 year difference. And we have the Shroud of Turin lining up very closely to linens that we know are 65 AD. So you can read the rest of it. Maybe there's the conclusion we can go if it's not. So more than 30 years ago, it was argued that the measurements of the depolymerization of the cellulose constituting the linen in the Turin shroud could have offered a possibility of dating its fabric. This was the aim of the work. In particular, the wax analysis presented here for the natural aging of the cellulose in the linen of the Turin shroud sample allows us to conclude that it is very probable that the Turin shroud is a relic of over 20 centuries old, 2,000 years old. Even if we only have European historical document for the last 7 centuries. Since the C14 dating does not agree with our results or with the dating obtained by other works and more accurate and systemic X-ray investigation of more samples taken from the Turin shroud fabric, which would be mandatory to confirm the conclusions of our study. In this regard, it is very interesting to note that the X-ray dating can be realized on 0.5 millimeter size sample, and contrary to the C14, the wax allows for repetitive measurements to be taken. So many more people can start doing this because you don't have to destroy, you don't have to cut a part of the fabric. You can just use X-ray on it. Because don't forget, C4 dating is you have to cut the shroud, and then you have to actually burn that piece, and that's how you're measuring the C14 by the burning. So you're destroying it. This we can keep on republishing. They could pretty much do the whole thing, hopefully over the exact image itself. So you can read basically the rest of that. There's also this one, long-term temperature effects of the natural linen aging. I read this over here. It's another good one that if you're, you really want to get educated on the shroud, that you should read. So long-term temperature effects of natural linen aging on the Shroud of Turin. They also talk about the controversial dating and criticize it for various reasons. Then from there, you have all the citations that you can go further. So, over time, I'd like to individually, look at all of these studies. The Shroud of Turin, guys, is the most studied artifact ever. Okay. This is the face of Edessa. And again, it has that classical, you know, that classical Jesus look that they got from the Shroud of Turin image. I think that the face of Edessa could very well be the shroud, because it appeared before the shroud popped up, and maybe it was just called the Shroud of Edessa. Just going through things that I popped up. This here is like AI. I think will be part of the beast system. They'll use it against us, but all of these renderings are based on the Shroud of Turin. So people have made models of what Jesus would look like based on the shroud. This is based on the shroud here. This one is recent. It's an AI rendition. So they asked artificial intelligence to create an image of the man on the shroud. So this is AI that took the information on the Shroud of Turin and produced this kind of image. Again, feel free, guys, to go binge watch all of Barry Schwartz's interviews and presentations. God bless his soul. He's passed away recently, maybe a couple of years ago at best. Just looking at stuff that I had popped up. Just finished this. So when you just look at Britannica, it says the Shroud of Turin is a length of linen that is purported to be the burial garment of Jesus Christ. It has been preserved since 1578 in the Royal Chapel Cathedral of San Giovanni Battista in Turin, Italy. So that's why they call it the Shroud of Turin. For centuries, the shroud has been the focus of debate about its authenticity and an object of devotion by those who believe that it is truly a relic of Christ. I believe it is truly a relic, that it's his burial cloth. I do not believe that you should pray to it, worship it, or anything like that. But I take it as, I've always said that the Bible, Christianity, is a fact-based faith, that it's not just one thing that you should. Well, hey, if you read the gospel or Sermon on the Mount, you come to believe in Jesus, that's all you need. God bless you, but we have historical evidence, we have archaeological evidence, we have the reliability of the manuscripts. We have how the Old Testament and New Testament, written by 40 different authors, 66 books, all have when you take it in totality, all support each other. Jesus is all over the Old Testament. The Old Testament is the New Testament concealed. The New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. So you can look into, the description. The image contains markings that allegedly correspond to the crucifixion wounds of Jesus, including the thorn marks on the head, the lacerations from the floggings on the back, the bruises on the shoulder because he carried the cross, various stains of what is presumed to be blood. But they're saying presume. Well, the actual science says that it is. And that's pretty much it. It came into public view. The first historical account of the shroud occurred in 1354, when it is recorded that it wound up in the hands of the famed knight Geoffrey de Chardonnay, Seigneur de Lire,
And prior to that, there's no record of how he came to possess it. So that's when it, came onto the world scene. And we can close all of these things here. We'll just finish off with looking at some images. All right. We're going to be done very soon, maybe 10 minutes. Got 9 people watching. Thank you, everybody, for those who stayed. At one point, we went up to 16. That's pretty high for my channel viewing. Greatly appreciated. Shroud of Turin. Just go to the images so we finish off with some images here. Sorry. So yeah, with the eye, it looks faint like this. And like I said, once you take a picture, usually what's produced is the photo negative that looks distorted, and then they make the photo positive that gives the details. When they take a picture of the faint image here, it shows up like a photo positive with a lot of details. And this is where we get, the classical image of Jesus that we see nowadays and that we see in videos and stuff like that in movies. Over here, this they made like a cast of what this would look like. So they kind of made like a statue of it over here. All right, guys. I'm just going to go back to the comment section. Thanks, everybody, to the 16-ish people that showed up. Thanks, Anne, Darth, Darla. Salut, Yann. Ça va bien, mon ami? My friend from France. Thank you, Paul, for showing up. Bill Bailey, please go see his research. Bill, you're welcome. Always on my channel. I would love to hear, you just present all the information. I would gladly just shut up and listen to you. Oh, thanks a lot, Darla, for the super chat. Very kind. I am still in mourning that I somehow deleted my Shroud of Turin PowerPoint. But you can go see the video. Here, Bill gives a more detailed about the mark. It goes, no, there were 120 flagram marks, 3 prongs per flagram, 40 on the dot. But so complete front and back, they damaged over 90% of the surface area. They were professionals, should have stopped at 39 by law. Okay. I had seen at one point that they had counted 200 individual lash marks. We can go to what a Roman flagram. Either way. I'm just sharing here. So if you don't know what a Roman flagrum would kind of look like. There's various probably replicas. Excuse me, but it gives you the idea. So they whip, and it will literally, rip chunks off of you too. Interesting also to note that when you look at the Shroud of Turin, the hands, you'll notice that you don't see the thumbs. So you have the radial ulnar bone. You also have the ulnar nerve. Okay, the ulnar nerve, when it's injured, the thumb goes inwards. So I show that in the presentation. So likely he was crucified through the wrist and severed the ulnar. If you can hit your funny bone in that shock, you can imagine just hitting, over here, because there's that notch where a nerve passes through. But the ulnar nerve will make the hand go inwards. Will make the thumb go inward, and we actually see that on the Shroud of Turin. So again, you have to say to yourself, wow, if this is just a smart forger, he knew anatomy very, very well. Much love to the precious little ones. Tux TV says a peer-reviewed report on asphyxiation fluids was extracted in 2021. Cool. I'll check into that. Yeah, because I'm a respiratory therapist, so I deal with pulmonary edema, pleural effusions. I work in the ER. I work in the ICU. We have effusions around the heart, pericardial effusions. We put chest tubes to drain out. I understand what rhabdomyolysis. So it's pretty interesting. Albumin. We give albumin to these patients. If your albumin's low, the osmolarity, the osmosis will basically, the water will seep from the vessel into the third space. It'll leave your vascular system where it's supposed to be in your vascular system and filtered through your kidney and urinated out. Instead, if your blood is low in albumin, you're going to actually just allow it through osmosis to cross the vessel into all sorts of areas called third spacing. Just looking in. Bye for now. Good presentation. Thanks a lot, Bill. Means a lot. Just going through the comments. James is the same conclusions as probably most of us here, that always believed that it was real. 100%. I always believed that it was real as well. It says in the end, knowledge will increase, and it's like, obviously, look at the scientific knowledge and medical knowledge and all that stuff that's increased. But I also believe that in the end, knowledge will increase. Stuff that, we're hearing about, Genesis 6, the fallen angels, the Nephilim, as in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. They were the fallen angels were tampering with genetics back then, which led to the flood. Jesus says what was happening back then, that genetic tampering will happen just prior to me coming. So we have this scientific knowledge in a way that's exploded over the last century, but at the same time, we're steeped in deception, and just lawlessness is abounding. People, we got to wake up. People got to wake up. Christians have to wake up, and non-Christians have to become Christians to wake up, because the prophecies in the Bible are coming true. All the stuff happening in the Middle East and stuff like that is all biblical. The Return of Israel in 1948, all biblical. Bob Pham says, it just blows my mind that he actually rose from the dead, literally. Yeah, it blows my mind too. God is real, but when you see the physical reality of this being recorded, it shatters the mind. Yeah, I know. For some reason, a lot of people not here, but when I try and talk to a lot of Christians, like they poo-poo it a lot, as if I'm not worshiping the image. I'm taking it as evidence that Christianity is fact-based. And a lot of Christians, for some reason, there's certain groups, are just like, no. Some are criticize, oh, it's the Catholics. It's like, okay, fine. The Catholics have possession of the Shroud of Turin. Who cares? What's that have to do? We look at who's that guy who was a Mormon that discovered, full of biblical sites and stuff like that. And they discredit him because they're like, oh, he was a Mormon. Okay, fine. But what stops this Mormon with bad doctrine? I don't consider Mormons Christians. Joseph Smith was a false prophet, but he found legit spots, and a lot of the spots I think that he found are really the true spots. Go to my playlist and look at the real Mount Sinai. I believe that location was found. I believe that Noah's Ark, the remnants of that, have been found. The area of the city of Sodom and Gomorrah still has the sulfur balls, and you can tell it's structures that look like a city, but it's ashes and sulfur balls found. The evidence is all there, but we live in a fallen world, and they just don't want us to. They're blinded, right? There's a veil. It's called. So Bill Bailey says it's called the Sudarium. It was kept in Edessa several centuries with a documented history in Jerusalem AD. There are 120 points of congruence with the Shroud of Turin. Yeah. So there's a Sudarium of Oviedo, and I know there's the face of Edessa. I thought it was the Sudarium of Oviedo that lines up perfectly with the Shroud of Turin. Correct me if I'm wrong. Put simply, they are both on the same body at the same time. Wonderful. 100% agree. Leather, 3 prongs embedded with glass, metal. He's talking about the. Yeah, there's some DNA, but it's degraded. So I don't think we can clone Jesus. Maybe that'll be the body of the Antichrist. Me personally, I think it's King Charles III. I'm convinced by Mike Cohen and Craig Bong's research, and he was talking about Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, being the Antichrist in the 80s or 90s. So it's not a recent thing. All right, guys, thanks a lot. There's 11 people, but I have to log off. Please share, subscribe, like I said, and I'll see you at 7 o'clock for 2 Corinthians 6 Bible study. We'll do our daily bread. God bless you. Love you all. See you soon.